Hello and welcome to this tutorial by Skyrock Projects. Today we're going to be making a jigsaw puzzle. So let's start by explaining which programs we're going to be using. There are two main programs, and the one is called Beam Studio, and it looks a little bit like this. This program will work together with our Beambox Pro, the laser cutter we use here at Skyrock. And the other more complicated program we're going to be using is Inkscape. So the reason we're using Inkscape is because we need to convert our files into SVG files to work with Beam Studio. So just to explain what we're doing, here's an SVG I've made before to make the laser cut dividers. So you can see it's an SVG document. We just drag it onto Beambox and we are good. Okay, so we'll come back to this a little bit later and I'll show you how it works. But right now I want to show you how to prepare your files for the Beam Studio. So we're going to go ahead and open our Inkscape window. If you don't fully understand what we're going to be making, I'll show you. Puzzle, we're going to be doing our own version of a jigsaw puzzle. So something like this. Ours will probably be a bit more simple, or if you like, a little bit more complicated. But let's begin. So the first thing we need to do is to find an image. So what we want an image with as little color as possible to make our cuts. So I'm gonna go with Pikachu. Okay, so these so the problem with these images is that they're all in color. So we're gonna say Pikachu coloring in, or you can say Pikachu lines only. So let's see, of everything that's on the screen, we want something with as little infill as possible. So something like this could possibly work, but this black area is going to cause us problems. So I'm going to go back to Pikachu coloring in, make sure I spell it right, and this is the kind of image we want. We want lines only, and I'll explain why. If we put an image, so I'm going to go to my other images. So if we put our images with black or color in it, it will be able to read the file, no problem. But when we export it, I want you to pay attention to the cutting time. As soon as it loads, so if we look at the cutting time by just inserting the image, we can see it's going to take 6 hours and 36 minutes. That's too long. So what we need to do is we need to find a simplified image, one with lines only. Something like this will do. Let's see. So I went ahead and I just said coloring book and whatever it was I was looking for. It can be dinosaur, it can be Pikachu, it can be Pokemon, blah blah blah. And even if we use something like this, we still see our cutting time is going to be a little bit too long. Let's see. In this case, 8 hours, and that's because it's reading the pixels. So we would need to convert these pixels into vector graphics. Vector graphics is a scalable form of images that we use to communicate to machines. That's why we're going to use Inkscape. So if I click on Inkscape, here is a block, and what I want to do is I want to open my file. So file, open. I'm going to click on my file, find your file, and I'm going to load it up. This isn't really important, just say OK, and our file is now loaded. There it is. Now there's a really easy way to change your file into vector graphics. What we're going to do is we're going to click on it, and we're going to click here at the top, path, and what we're going to use is trace bitmap. Now what you can also do is, as you can see on our right, we can also just press Shift, Alt, and B. This will take our pixels and turn it into vector format. So we're gonna select single scan. I'm gonna go for edge detection, and I'm gonna update. Actually, let's go with brightness cutoff. I'm gonna update, and I'm gonna say switch off smooth corners, optimize, lower the threshold. Let's see what happens. Let's actually increase the threshold. Too much. Let's try 0.5. That looks fine. So we'll say OK when we're done, and we'll close this, and we'll drag it to one side. Now we can delete our original image, and we have a vector that can be taken into our Beam Studio. So I will say File, Save As, and I'll save it as Pikachu. Let's say Pikachu Puzzle SVG. And I'll go into my Windows Explorer, I'll go to the file, here it is, and I'll just drag it into my Beam Studio. And click on Layer, and now when I export it, oh gosh, I think I dragged the wrong file. Let's try that again. Try that one more time. Let's go path. Let's also do this. Let's click on stroke to path, and we'll make sure the fill is none. Put a stroke on. If we zoom in, we now have a stroke. Let's keep the stroke style. Bring it way down, and let's try that again. Pikachu Puzzle, drag it in. I want to export it. We now have only 12 minutes to cut our image. So I'm going to do that one more time so you can see what I did. We're going to take our original file. Let's start again from our original file. It's this one. Notice there's no black. We're going to paste it in. Click OK. Click on the image. Click on Path. Trace bitmap. Keep the settings. Say OK. From there, we drag off our vector, and we're going to delete our original. We want strokes only, so I'm going to say path, stroke to path. And if we zoom in, let's try that again. check our fill, put our fill off, put our stroke on, and there we go. We now have our Pikachu ready to be saved. So we got to go to path, stroke to path, click on the image, switch off our fill, and put on our stroke. And then finally save as Pikachu puzzle, replace it because we've already saved it, and drag it into our workspace. Click on layer and OK. And once again, we've reduced a 6 to 8 hour cut to a 12-minute cut. So that's it for part 1. Tune into part 2 in the next video.